Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I'm your host, Ron Dichter. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of this community of ours. We are a scrappy bunch of entrepreneurs trying to change the world and giving you my wisdom from my journey as an entrepreneur. I've been a four-time exit entrepreneur and really six-time entrepreneur. I've made a bunch of mistakes. I've also done some things right. And my job is to impart whatever wisdom I can to you to help make your journey, whether it be just starting out or whether you are already knee deep in it, give you any wisdom I can to help, because I believe entrepreneurs change the world, make it a better place, and anything I can do to help, I feel like is worthwhile effort and a good use of my time. Today, I want to talk about the ripple effect, and I want to talk about momentum. And they aren't necessarily mutually exclusive of one another, but I'm going to talk about them separately, and we'll just kind of dive right into it. So first off, I want to talk about ripple effect. And the ripple effect is really the outstream impact from whatever it is that you're doing, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think a lot of business owners, when they are, going through their thought process, they think about things in a very near-term aspect. And they start looking at things in like, okay, if we do these things, we implement this, whatever, we're going to have this outcome from doing it. But a lot of times what's not focused on is what the ripple effect is. And if you think about a earthquake, so growing up in Alaska, we're always taught about earthquakes, and we're talking about, how far you are from the epicenter. And, the ripple effect from that earthquake is how far out you're going to feel the effects of that earthquake. And obviously, the further out you go, the more diminished the feeling is, and the closer you are, you're going to feel it more. But in business, it's no different than that. So if you're making this decision and you're thinking about, okay, I want to make this move now because here's what's going to happen 30 days from now. That's great. But what about 60 days? What about 90 days? What about 120? What about a year from now? What impact? Also, the other part of ripple effect is what impact that decision has on both your internal team as well as your customers. Let me just give you an example. In my business of software, I was meeting with my marketing team and we were talking through a promotion that we want to do. And the promotion was all about discounting the first, 90 days of use and then going to the regular price after. And one of my sales guys said to me, he's like, well, what happens when our existing customer gets wind of this promotion and says, well, why didn't I get that? And how do I get those same, discounted, few months since I signed up? And it was a ripple effect of, we wanted to get more sales, but, we were concerned about what was the impact factor or the ripple effect that was going to happen with this downstream existing customer that says, what about me? You always see that with like your internet provider, where, they have some sort of promo going on, and inevitably what you do is you call back in, tell them you're going to cancel, and they give you that new promotion. So they're constantly discounting. So it's a really slippery slope. And that's just one example. Or, let's say that you want to drive more sales. The goal is to increase sales 20%. However, what is the ripple effect or the impact factor that the existing team is going to feel from 20% more sales? Is there a deliverable on the support side or the onboarding side, or, the shipping, the warehousing? Like, is there a ripple effect that you need to figure out and factor in as you're making those decisions? So as I think about ripple effect, there's really two components. There's time-based ripple effect. Like, if I do this thing, what is the time-based effect that it's going to have? And then the second is what is the impact factor both to my customers that I don't or that I have today, and then what is the impact factor to my team? And you have to think about those ripple effects from all those vantage points. And it's really tough as an entrepreneur because sometimes you're so focused on making new sales that you don't understand that ripple effect is going to have a negative impact potentially into your existing team. While you might be cheering, rah, more sales, your support team, you're like, look, like we're drowning right now. How do you expect us to handle 20% more sales? So you have to address that ripple effect as you're going into it. The second thing I want to just touch on briefly is momentum. And as I said in the beginning, like these two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive of each other, but momentum is a really, really good thing when you have good momentum. And it's a really bad thing when you have bad momentum. And so as you start, looking at the decisions that you're making, as you start assessing, what needle moving things you want to do, whether it's more sales, whether it's less attrition, whatever your goal is, looking at that momentum is really important, and then capitalizing on that momentum. So in a former business, it was a business services company, and one of the issues that we had is that sales were doing great. Like we were bringing on more and more sales every year, and the company was growing 40-50% a year. However, we weren't netting that many new customers. There was a leaky bucket syndrome where we would put 10 new customers in the bucket, but 7 would leak out the bottom. So our net new was only 3 new customers in that particular time frame, which is problematic. And so as you think about momentum, you just have to be aware of what momentum, what trends are happening in your business. If you're in a service-based business and you're seeing attrition, right? That's a trend. That's the momentum, and there's a reason for that. And if you don't plug that hole, that's going to accelerate, which is obviously not what you want to do, which is have an acceleration of losing customers. If you have more sales and you're doing a lot of things right in your initiatives, that's an acceleration you do want to have. So that's just kind of thinking about it from a service-based business. Products the same way. As you start to forecast out, the amount of inventory that you need to take, you need to recognize, the momentum. Because if all of a sudden you're seeing an influx of product sales of a specific item and you don't get ahead, because let's say you have a long lead time to get that product and you don't start ordering, preparing for that momentum, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to come to the end where you don't have it, and they're either going to find an alternative product from one of your competitors or find the thing that you're offering somewhere else. So really getting ahead of that momentum, good or bad, again, just recognizing it is really important to do. So really just 2 things I wanted to cover today. Again, understanding the impact factor, the ripple effects of decisions that you made, and understanding momentum and the velocity in which these good or bad decisions move, and making sure that you can get ahead of them to either do more of it or correct an issue before it becomes a real problem. Anyway, hope you find this stuff helpful. Again, goal is to give you little tidbits of information that you can use in your existing business, or you can apply as you get into your journey as an entrepreneur. Always welcome new topics, so please feel free to DM me if you have topics you'd like me to cover. But again, thanks for being part of our community. Please remember to like and comment, and most importantly, share. Let's get the word out there, folks. Have a great day.